First of all, thank you very much that I have now the opportunity to present something a little bit outside of technology, So I would like to talk within the next 2 hours about the fact how we can put all these things into the view of... You said 2 hours, did you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, thanks. Into the eyes of a CISO, and actually what is the CISO looking for with all this kind of information. If we're still looking at the CISO's view, he's somewhere in between. On one hand, from the top, he has the business view, of course, he needs to look into. And on the other hand, bottom, right, this is the technology piece, all the good stuff we've seen before. It is quite hard actually, because all of these layers above and from the bottom, they do have certain demands. If we are still looking in the technology stack, there is things like we need to detect, we need to prioritize things, we have to get the visibility into our assets, which will finally help us to run the business, right? So there's no PC, no server just for fun. We would like to accomplish a certain task with this piece of technology, and therefore we need to have this visibility. On the other hand, we are doing all this stuff because the business has also some demands, because we would like to sell something, we would like to produce something. We would like to bring services into the market, and therefore also those demands are coming from the business itself, and therefore we need to also provide some information up to the business. For example, we have risks, we have fundings, and all this good information needs somehow to be translated to the business, so the business will finally understand what we are talking about, and therefore the CISO's role is somewhere, I call it sometimes it's a sandwich between the business and of course the technology. So he or she needs to translate certain things to the business so that the business will understand why we need this particular technology. And on the other hand, he or she needs to make sure that the company is safe, that the company is secure from the latest and greatest malware threats and attack vectors, so that the business in return runs smoothly. I think this is pretty obvious, and therefore is the question, how can RSA Archer finally help with all these kind of different tasks we have right now seen in the previous slide. Now, who of you knows RSA Archer? At least a couple. Wonderful. For all the others, let me give a short introduction about this technology. So RSA Archer in return is a suite. It's a suite of use cases. I will come to this later. And all those use cases are finally there to help your specific business requirements. So all those specific business requirements are sharing one platform, and therefore we are able to accomplish certain tasks. We are able to import and ingest data from external systems and make those data actionable for the business, for the organization itself. So within RSA Archer, and let me skip this animation to save some time, what we have are those huge areas of use case buckets. So we have business resiliency, we have audit management, we have IT, cybersecurity stuff. All those are actually groups where we have placed, we call them use cases. And see a use case that this is something which addresses a certain business requirement. For example, a BIA, a business impact analysis. What is it you need to? You need to perform an assessment on a business process. And this result will then finally be used in other processes for prioritization, for actually rolling out certain activities to ensure that this particular business process with a specific criticality will run smoothly throughout the organization. So all this kind of information are then finally sharing the business context. So the business context is something what we've seen in the first presentations, the assets. This is business context, right? And the applications running on this particular asset. So this is information shared across all those various use cases, And of course, we have then our organizational structure with the business units of the company, the divisions, and you name it. And all this kind of information is linked together. And within our use cases, we are as well offering you out-of-the-box workflows, out-of-the-box approaches, how you can actually address for example, BIA. Let's take this. We all know that you as an organization do have a different way of maybe performing a BIA or performing a criticality assessment. Therefore, the platform beneath enables you to modify and justify the system in a way that it will support your business process. However, within our partner landscape as well, they are using Archer and they are offering solutions. This is on top. And we have also a variety of existing customers who are more than happy to share their experience with you, how they have addressed a certain problem, a certain issue from the business, and how was Archer able to help that. So we were also meeting on a regular basis together with our customers and then sharing this information and also finally sharing those ideas. Any questions so far? Am I too fast? Too slow? Someone fell asleep? I can't see it from here. No. Okay. Let's have a look, because if you're still looking at the CISO, a CISO as the sandwich layer between the business and the technology, he or she needs also to answer some sometimes critical questions. Yeah, and the information or the underlying data is there, but the business, when asking this kind of question, they would like to have this answer immediately. They don't want to wait an additional day or 2 or 3 or even a week. They would like to have the information immediately. So, and with all this kind of data we already have in the system is one question coming up all the time. Do we have enough resources to manage all those kind of incidents? So what we can do within RSA Archer is actually we are able to collect this meta information from various systems, bringing them together, and finally compiling a dashboard with certain reports and KPIs, for instance, to provide the information, hey, are we good on a saturation level from our staffing perspective? Or do I need to go to my direct management and ask for more, right? We need an additional resource. Because if you are going to your management and asking for an additional resource, they're asking you the question back, what is the justification? So, and if I'm able to say, hey, we have now, or we are only able to solve this amount of incidents in this particular time, but if we would have an additional 2 or 3 resources, this will actually help us to become better as an organization to manage all those incident threats or doing proactive hunting, then that's a much better discussion. Do you agree? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. When you're looking at incidents, this is also something. Which incidents will impact the business? You can say every single incident, but sometimes incidents do have a certain priority. So, and what you can do, or better, what every organization is actually doing, they are doing active risk management. Now, if you're still looking into risk management, between you and me, right, risk management is something, I feel that this might happen. That's a feeling, okay? And then what's usually happening within those organizations is they're putting this feeling they have into a so-called risk register. Okay, brilliant, lovely. First step. Unfortunately, those risk register, they will grow over time, and no one is really looking into those risk registers. And finally, they become obsolete because, hey, there's all outdated information in there. Now, what you can do is when you have the proper systems in place, you can actually use this kind of information coming, for example, from NetWitness and link this data back to a risk. So now you are able to say, hey, if this particular incident will happen, it will have a negative impact to our business risk. In this particular case, I think it is unauthorized access to business critical applications. So there is a possibility of linking real raw data back to the business to make a justification to say, hey, here's something going wrong. Now, we have this understanding, hey, something is going south. On the other hand, then management is asking as well, okay, what it is we are actually doing to minimize this particular risk. So, and then you can say, yes, we are implementing a new software. Guess what's happening? The question is, hey, how much does it cost? Right? How much does it cost this new security control for implementation? So two things are very likely linked together. On one hand, it is the security control you are actually now throwing towards this particular risk to minimize it, to work with the risk. And on the other hand, it goes hand in hand with the question, what does it cost? And down here we see as well our security controls. However, having those security controls in place, and that's the reason why we see the compliance on the left-hand side, they must be in line with your internal security policy. Okay? Because when you have those as a security policy in place, you are able to fulfill those compliance requirements as we will see them in a second. As I said before, with the security controls, if they are in place and how much are they cost, if I'm going to my management and say, hey, I would like to have a new PC, and this new PC costs you 10,000 euros, guess what? Do I really get this PC? I don't think so. Yeah? So I need to justify certain things. What is the positive outcome of it, right? So, and could you please explain me why should I spend 100,000 euros on this particular security control? What's the question is here, what's in for me? How will my risk finally be reduced? And also this is something what you can simply do within RSA Archer. There are also other methodology. If you would like, we can have a little chat within the coffee break where you are able to quantify those new methods against certain risks. So in this particular case, we see the residual and we see the inherent risk, and the inherent will then finally look into all the controls and stuff like that we have implemented, and taking into account the number or the value we have finally added for a specific security control to maintain it, to implement it, and then finally to see should I really spend the 100,000 euros or should I do something else? Because at the end of the day, it will have a positive or maybe no neutral impact to the overall risk. Compliance. Do you have any laws your organization need to follow? Yes, I think so. Because at the end of the day, we all need to do certain things, not because we want to, sometimes we are forced. GDPR is one thing, right? All this encryption stuff is now coming up. And there are other laws and regulations which needs to be followed, and you need to make sure that your organization will follow those laws and regulations. On the other hand, it takes sometimes really ages to compile all this data. Now, if we're still looking for a control is nothing else than a materialized compliance obligation. What you can do is when you have all this kind of stuff in Archer, you can actually use the results of your controls, whether they're compliant or not compliant, and link them back to what we call them authoritative sources. And then you can easily say, okay, I'm compliant with NIST, with ISO, or whatever kind of regulation you are looking for. And then you can spot out maybe the weak spots where you said, maybe we are a little bit short on this particular area. We might to think about investments for ISO chapter XYZ or NIST chapter XYZ, or you name it. So with one single click, you are able to see immediately where are my weak spots and what are finally the things where we need to invest our time, resources, and at the end of the day, the money. And finally, but last but not least, risks. they are linked to something. But if I have a risk associated with an asset which has a very low priority within my organization, maybe I have other assets and there are risks as well, and I need to justify that I will spend a little bit more money on the high priority asset rather than on the low priority assets, whatever those assets are. So, and within RSA Archer, you are able to create these linkages between an asset, an application, information asset, business process, you name it, and then finally coming results from an assessment, from a BIA, using this kind of data, using this kind of information, and then to focus immediately on the important assets and put them on a specific spot or investing the money for new or updated security controls. All this kind of information, or better, all those kind of questions are using out-of-the-box use cases. So in those use cases right now, as of today, we have 35 plus, and there's also as well a huge community use case list are sharing the same information. So if I have business processes and I'm using them, for example, in the BIA, I can reuse them immediately in the risk management as an example. Or if I need to perform an audit within the organization, I can also reuse all this kind of information coming from the business process, coming from the BIA, or even from the compliance organization. So nevertheless, this is the full-fledged platform, okay? And it is also possible to just start with 1 or 2 use cases. And the beauty about the overall Archer platform is finally that you are able to tailor and modify those use cases to your business requirements. We know, definitely we know that our use cases coming out of the box do not follow your specific requirements. How should we know this? But what we are doing is we are giving you actually the opportunity and the flexibility of tailoring our use cases without breaking any update or upgrade path, and you can use the application builder to tailor them to your business requirements. On the other hand, there are access controls, there's data ingestion, so data import, reporting functionalities as we have seen it on the previous dashboards, coming with every single use case. Finally, Peter, how much time do I have? 0. Thank you. I leave this as the last slide and say thank you very much for your patience, for your time, and now we have a coffee break?
No.
No, sorry. You guys don't have a coffee break, but I'm finishing now. I go and grab one. Oh, thank you.